On this week's Man Up podcast, marriage isn't just a title, it's a calling. And being a great husband, that takes work. It's about selflessness, communication, and leading by example. Want a stronger marriage? Start by listening, really listening. Show love through actions, not just words. And remember, small sacrifices today build a lifetime of trust. So this week, step up, be intentional, and make your wife feel truly valued. You got this.
Welcome to another episode of the Man Up Podcast. I'm your host, Terry Gwaltney. Excited to be with you today. At the time of this recording, Valentine's Day is just around the corner. And I thought, it would be appropriate to share a few tips to some of the guys out there on just how to be a better Christian husband. I want to preface that by saying all advice today comes with a disclaimer, meaning coming from an imperfect guy with an imperfect marriage, serving a perfect God. So let's set the expectations where they should be. Having said that, golly, I've been married 39 years, and I'm constantly reminded every time that I look in the mirror, of how much more I have to learn. You would think if you've spent 4 decades with someone, you would know everything there is to know about them. And in some ways, you'd be able to give them everything that they deserve. We get caught in ruts that are just based on our habits, default maybe to parts of our personality that don't really lend to us being maybe sometimes the best husbands. Maybe we don't connect real well emotionally. Maybe communicating is not something that comes natural to us on a personal level. I mean, you could just fill in the blanks of all the different things. But today, again, I'm telling you a lot of things that I've learned, as well as I want to share with you some things that I'm still learning. Because again, my marriage is not a utopia where everything is perfect and we never have problems and there's not challenges. I think that could be said of everybody listening here today. I think the difference is where you go for those resources and try to pull those principles, those truths, those tips, and just a willingness to continue to try them. Just because you're not good at it, just because it doesn't come natural, just because you failed before doesn't mean you quit, give up, and throw in the towel. So, having said all that, let's start with this. Being a husband, it's more than a title. Obviously, you can have a title change the moment you say I do, take on responsibilities, new commitments. Everything now moves into this joint relationship. But it's so much more than that. It really is a calling. It comes with a lot of work, requires a lot of dedication. Here's probably the biggie. It requires a lot of selflessness. The challenge is if we don't realize that, our default generally as men and as humans in general is to be more selfish, not selfless. And so there's this internal battle that's always going on. And let's be real, when you get married, it can be challenging to balance all of life's responsibilities while also trying to be this good husband. But with the right mindset and the right approach, everyone listening today can become a better husband. And so I'll kind of give you the highlights, and then we'll just see how far we can go today. I'll give you as many tips as our time will allow. But that is my goal, just give you a few tips and advice maybe on how you can grow in your role as a husband. And in the process of that, deepen your relationship with your wife and deepen your relationship with God. So one of the most crucial aspects of being a good Christian husband really starts with the foundation of you need to have a good, strong faith. And so I would not recommend trying to do this on your own. More than believing in a God, I would encourage you to become a follower of Jesus and a disciple. And really what that means is you're studying his life, his word, which is the Bible, the example that he left that we read about in there. And then when you accept him, the Holy Spirit lives on the inside of you. And so you take all those things and you pull them together and you use that as a resource to God, I need your help. I'm looking to you for direction. Because let's face it, many times we're trying to give to someone else what we never seen modeled or never personally experienced given to us. And so you need another resource to be able to pull that from. So all these vertical relationships, or these horizontal relationships, I should say, that we have always function so much better when the vertical relationship between me and my God is healthy. It tends to lend to all these other relationships in our lives being healthier. The other aspect of this, and it's equally essential, if you're going to be a better husband, you have to learn how to communicate effectively. And I think there's a difference between being a good communicator professionally and being a good communicator personally. There's a difference between communicating with a group of men. There's a difference between communicating with you and a group of women. And then there's a bigger difference when you're communicating even with your spouse. And so learning how to do that, learning how to, listen actively, be open, be honest, try to avoid, harsh language and criticism, and realize who you're talking to, a person who's dedicated their entire life to you, loves you unconditionally. That's the whole goal in all this. And so, you handle that a little bit more delicately than you do with your best friend, your coworker, or your subordinate at work. And when you communicate well, guys, we build trust, we build intimacy. You bring in understanding in your marriage, and all that leads to a stronger and a healthier relationship. And I would say the last thing with this is, if you're going to be a better Christian husband, we have to have a willingness to serve our spouse selflessly. Again, that is it's almost like an oxymoron, because there's part of us that our default is to do what we want to do, to be selfish, what's in it for me. And really we're commanded to do just the opposite. I mean, when it gives us the example of marriage, I mean, it's pretty bold. I expect you to love your wife the way Christ loved the church and lay your life down for it. I mean, dude went to the cross for us. He gave his life for us. That's a pretty high bar of sacrifice that he's showing us to model as we look to, serve our spouses. So if you're ready to take your role as a husband to the next level, then I want you to keep listening. I'm going to give you just a few of these tips. I'm going to go fast. I'm going to ask you to write them down. And I'm going to encourage you, just try to unpack them when we get off here. So if nothing else, I hope I give you just enough to pique your interest. But then I want you to take the initiative to go dive a little bit deeper and figure out, I need to understand a little bit more of what he was talking about there. And then I want you to take this and apply it between now and Valentine's Day. And obviously you're probably planning something for Valentine's Day just because it's the normal thing to do. But why don't you make it special this time? Why don't you give your wife more than maybe a flower, a candy, or just a dinner at a restaurant? And if you're not doing some of those things, that's the low bar. I encourage you to try to at least begin to do those things. But at the end of the day, there's things that are far more important to her than just that. And let her see something different in you as we go forward. So here's number one. Write this down. You need to learn to be selfless. Here's your tip. Be selfless. I mean, it's got to be one of the most important qualities of a husband. You've entered into a relationship with a commitment to serve another person. And before, you set your time, you set your schedule, you chose where you're going to spend your money, you chose exactly what you wanted to eat, how you wanted to spend your time, what hobbies you were going to have, when you came, when you left. And all that just begins to radically change when you move into a marriage, or it should, because now it's not just about you. So there begins the selfless aspect of this. You have to be willing to sacrifice your time, your energy, your desires for the sake of your spouse. There's some things you're doing that just depletes you, and there's nothing that you have left to give your wife. So you may need to look and okay, maybe I don't need to do that even though I enjoy it, because it's taking away from some other things that are super important, and it's not allowing me to show up and be the best version of me when I'm with my wife. It also means being willing to forgive, even when it's difficult. It means giving your spouse the benefit of the doubt. There's something that happens when we practice selflessness. You really start creating an environment of this love and the respect, and actually unity starts happening in the marriage, all by just being selfless. When you're selfless, you can be more patient with your spouse. I mean, let's be real, guys. Marriage is not always easy. There's going to be times when you and your spouse have disagreements, you have misunderstandings. And when this happens, it's essential that you're patient and that you're understanding with each other. So you need to take the time to listen to your spouse's point of view. All of this requires this selfless thread running through, because for most of us, it's not our natural tendency or default. Being selfless helps you put the needs of your spouse first. You think about that. In a really healthy relationship, it's important that you prioritize the needs of your partner. So in this case, your wife. Respect, communication, compromise. All these things are key elements if you're going to be able to achieve that. You have to be able to put your spouse's needs first. And guys, it's not always easy, but it's necessary if you're going to maintain a strong and a happy marriage. It builds this sense of endearment. It communicates how much you love this person, because your actions are actions. They speak so much louder than our words. So under number 1 of being selfless, here's some quick tips, cheat codes. Take the time to ask your spouse what they need from you. Like, how much of the time we spend trying to figure this out? Why don't we just be direct? What do you need from me? Not necessarily asking it that way, but getting that point across. Second one, be willing to make sacrifices for your partner's happiness. That means you may have to put aside something that is important to you in the moment and do something that's not, maybe not near as appealing to you. Maybe you're a huge football fan and your wife loves classical music. I mean, it's painful for me even to say that. But maybe you need to make a sacrifice to take her and buy her a ticket and go and participate in one of those. Why? Well, it's a win automatically, because she knows the only reason you're doing it is for her. It's not about your enjoyment. It's not about what you wanted. You wanted to make her happy. 3, show appreciation for the things she does for you. Don't just take it for granted, all those things that she does on a consistent basis. Show some appreciation for it. How do I do that? Shoot her a text. Oh, yeah, I just appreciate you getting up early this morning and just making my lunch. Or dinner was just great last night. I know you worked hard, and then you still found time to somehow go grocery shopping and prepare a meal fit for a king. I appreciate that. Maybe it's leaving a note, a card. Maybe it's taking the bar of soap and writing on a mirror in the morning. I feel so lucky to have you in my life. These are little tips, guys. They don't cost a lot of money, but they have to be intentional. Plan some activities that you both enjoy. Be willing to compromise on disagreements. In other words, be secure enough to know that you don't always have to prove that you're right. Sometimes it's enough to know that you are right, but you don't have to prove it. Just be willing sometimes to compromise on the disagreement. And the last quick tip I would say is be open to feedback. Be willing to work on issues together. Sometimes the feedback is easier to take from people that don't know us intimately, and for whatever reason, more difficult to take it from someone that is closer to us. I think it's because, quite honestly, we kind of let our guard down and our hair down a little bit and feel like we can say whatever we want to say to the people that are closest to us. And really, we should be even more guarded with our tongues on how we respond, and just making sure that our words don't come across as being harsh. So there's some quick tips on being selfless. Second thing I'm going to give you today, make sacrifices. Be willing to make a sacrifice for the sake of your marriage. Why? It's worth it. We make sacrifices for things all the time that are important to us. Because why? Because we see the bigger picture. We sacrifice on buying certain things now because we want to buy something bigger in the future. We sacrifice going out and having maybe certain hobbies and doing certain things that put demands on our money because we have a dream of having a house and we want to have a down payment, or we want to get out of debt and all these things. And so you're willing to sacrifice for that. You're willing to sacrifice and go through some physical pain to get into a fitness program because you see the end picture of what you want to look like and how you want to feel and how you want to be there for the people that are most important to you. So we know what it is to sacrifice. Take the same mindset and do that with your marriage. Be willing to make sacrifices for your marriage. A willingness to give up something that's valuable for the sake of someone else, your wife. Let's be real, for something that is more valuable. That's kind of where the compromise comes in. Your willingness to put your partner first, the willingness to be flexible and not just always have it your way or the highway. Making sacrifices for your marriage, man, it's not always easy, but I can promise you it's worth it. And it's a two-way street, and as the husband in your home, you say, well, my wife doesn't give on anything. I'm always the one giving. Listen, you give her to God, and then you just lead by example and let him take care of everything else, and just watch how your marriage begins to change. Sacrificing is a selfless act, and it requires you to look beyond your own needs and your own wants. Why? Because it's about putting your wife or someone else's needs before your own. And this is big boy stuff. Like, put on the big boy pants if you're going to listen to this one today. This stuff's going to help you, but man, it's not easy, and it kind of goes against our flesh. Third thing today, show her how much you love her through your actions, not just your words. I don't understand why she doesn't think I love her. I tell her that every day. There's not a day goes by that I don't tell her, because she's looking for your actions to line up with your words. And it's a lot easier to say something even flippantly and almost get in this robotic mode. Well, I love you. I love you. I love you. And it's like, is there any meaning behind that? What does that mean to you when you say that? You tell me that, but I don't feel that way when you talk down to me. I don't feel that way when you cut me off when I'm trying to share something important. I don't feel that way when I feel like you demeaned me in public by that comment. So your actions are just as important, and sometimes not more important than your words. Show them. How do you do that? Well, for one, you make time for your spouse. Man, it's easy to get caught up in work and just other responsibilities, but you have to make sure that you're carving out time with your family and your spouse. So you make time for them. Now, that can be a date night. It can be a quiet evening at home. But man, it's important that you just have a designated time to have that strong connection, and they know it. And I would encourage you, as you're doing that, maybe share a calendar on your phone. I think this is a quick tip. There's just something about your spouse seeing that she made your calendar versus, let me look at my calendar and see if I have time for us to do this. For her being on your calendar just says something about that. Do the small things, through actions. So what do you mean? Well, I mean, the grand things that we do are great, when you can go and spend 2 weeks somewhere, or, you can go to that once in a lifetime trip. I mean, that's awesome. But a lot of times it's all the small things that make the biggest impact. Maybe flip it around and you cook your wife's favorite meal. It's like she wants me nowhere near the kitchen. All right, well, maybe you go to 2 or 3 of her favorite restaurants intentionally. Take a cooler and throw in, she loves appetizers from here. She loves a salad from here. She loves a meal or dessert from here. Bring it all home while it's still warm and then plate it all up. Like, she will recognize the intentionality you have, the thought you had to put into that, and the effort that was required. And those small things can have a great return and a great impact. Leave that little note, in her car. And maybe it's just a small little gift. Again, it's the thought behind it. And guys, this is not just to be done at Valentine's Day. What we're talking about is getting in a work and a life rhythm. So this just becomes a part of who you are in your marriage. Show interest in their life. I mean, instead of just what happened today, try to figure out, what are their interests? What are their goals? Ask about that. Listen actively. Engage, in a conversation that seems to be meaningful for them. I'm giving you advice that is difficult for myself to do, but I know I'm trying to push myself, and so I'm reaching outside of that to read stuff, listen to stuff, and constantly come back. Why? Because, man, this shows your wife that you care about her life. So if that's important to her, it is important to me, even as difficult sometimes as it can be. Be supportive. If she's got a dream that you can get behind, be supportive of that. Be their biggest cheerleader. Support them in any way you can. Whether that's just going to their events or helping them brainstorm or whatever the case might be. I encourage you to be affectionate. And we're talking about showing through actions. Sometimes, guys, that's simply putting your arm around her while you're sitting in church, holding her hand as you're walking through maybe a mall. Those things are so simple. A quick hug, a kiss on the forehead, but they're communicating affection. You do that in public too. It's communicating that, hey, publicly, this is how I feel about this lady, and it's honoring her. And then just, again, goes back to sacrifice. Just put their needs first. I know I'm going fast. I hope you're writing this down. You may need to slow this one down as you listen to it instead of listening on 1.5, and then listen to it again. Fourth thing I'm going to give you. Listen to this one really good. Practice active listening. And I say practice because generally we're not good at it. As men, we're listening to the conversation to diagnose the problem so we can immediately solve it and give people the answer. At work, you can get rewarded for that. That can be a path for your promotion. Can I tell you at home, that can be a problem. Most of the time, your wife's not looking to you to solve the problem. If she is, she will ask you. Most of the time, she's looking for a close confidant and a friend that will listen to her vent about what's going on, and she needs to be heard. So effective communication, which is so key in any kind of relationship, involves this active listening. Your ability to sit and listen and pull back on the need to be focused on what your response is going to be and really listen through, because I need to hear the emotion that is going behind what my wife is telling me so I can respond to that appropriately. I need to be able to give empathy in this situation to her and her feel that as being real, more so than I need to give her the answer that seems maybe very obvious to me, like you're going to do this, aren't you? You're just going to tell them that, aren't you? That's not what she's looking for. And so that's not what she needs. And so you're not wired that way, guys, for most of us anyway. And so, again, don't listen to respond. I want you to practice, start listening to hear the emotion behind that. Fifth thing, learn to give your wife full attention. You think about that for some of you maybe that have had kids. Maybe you have kids now. Maybe you have grandkids. They want to come perform for you. They want to be in front of you. They'll turn around and they'll ask as they're doing their dance or singing their song or doing a cartwheel or building something. Are you watching? Are you watching? Are you watching? What they're saying is, I want your full attention. I want to feel like that I'm important enough that you're paying attention to me. You're not glancing over here out of obligation. And we don't ever lose that. Your wives never lose that. And at the end of the day, your attention means more to her than anybody else's. And she's far more astute now at 25 years old, 35 years old, 45 years old, however old, to know when you're not fully paying attention. So disconnect. I mean, when your spouse is talking to you, you need to disconnect from your phone, any other distractions. If it's too big a distraction when this conversation is happening because you're watching something on television, you may need to shut it off for a minute. You need to be all in. You need to be present where you're at, so they have your full attention. That's not just not looking at your phone. I mean, it comes down to your body language. My wife will tell me, I know when I need to quit talking because of the look that's on your face. Well, obviously I'm not carrying this out very well. And so the body language doesn't need to be, I'm sending the message of, will you hurry up? You're interrupting me, but I'm paying attention to you because I know that's what you expect me to do. I mean, it's counterproductive. Then your body language can convey a whole lot. If you're in sales, I mean, people are taught how to read other people when they cross their arms, they're closing you out and they're closed-minded. I mean, you don't have to be a student of people just to realize there's a whole lot more that you've learned without having a formal class. When somebody rolls their eyes, it sends a message. They didn't say anything. When somebody frowns, it sends a message. When they put their hands on their hip, it sends a message. And so just think about that. Your body language is sending a message. The other thing is if you're going to give them full attention, you need to be able to affirm and validate them. Well, what in the world are you talking about? So it's not just about hearing what she's saying. It's about showing that you understand and then valuing her opinions. Sometimes that means you're going to ask more questions. Sometimes that means you're going to repeat back what she said. So if I'm understanding you right, then what you were saying is, wow, that tells her like he is engaged. And I mean, it's almost like scoring points when you go to the classical concert that she knows you hate classical music, but you bought the ticket. She didn't buy the ticket and ask you to go. You bought the ticket, you planned the night, and you went. She knows you have absolutely no interest in that music. The only reason you're going and taking her is because she's important to you. That's the same message you're sending right here. Like, wow, I know how much he must hate this, but he is engaged. He's trying. He's listening. Guys, I encourage you. And the last thing on that point, acknowledge her. When she's finished speaking, just acknowledge what she said. Doesn't mean you even have to agree with them, but it means you're willing to consider the perspective that she shared, because we're not always going to agree on everything. We're two different humans coming from two totally different perspectives in life. Sixth thing I would give you today, believe it or not, your wife wants you to be a spiritual leader in the home. Yeah, she wants you to carry some of that responsibility for making sure that we're passing on this spiritual heritage to our kids, that she doesn't have to feel like, I've got to be the one that says no always because I feel like I'm the one making decisions in our household that are contrary to the culture and the influence of the world, but I'm having to do it all on my own. She doesn't always want to feel like she's the one having to lobby for how much we're going to give at church and how much we're going to allot in our budget to give back to God, or have to fight for that. She doesn't always want to have to be the one that has to pray. When it comes down, well, your mom is she's a spiritual one in the household. That may be true, but she wants you to step up and share some of that responsibility and be able to lead in that. So you need to be the spiritual leader in your home. So I want to encourage you, pray together. Pray together might not mean that you're having an hour prayer holding your wife's hand singing Kumbaya. I mean, maybe that is. I mean, that's awesome. But man, it could be something as simple as like, I'm going to pray over dinner tonight. Well, me and my wife are here, and I'm going to thank God for the wife he's given me and the food he's supplied for me and the family he's entrusted me with. But the fact that you're willing to do that, it shows that you're trying to lead by example. Maybe it's you simply going to pray with your kids at night. That's being a spiritual leader in your home. Watch her stand at the door and overhear you or watch you. You'd be surprised how much that will impact your marriage because she craves that. Don't just send your family to church or your wife to church and support her. I'm supportive of my wife going to church. Take her. Go with her. Learn with her. Share that aspect of her life. She doesn't want to feel like that she's living in two different worlds. So go with her, man, and lead by example. Just lead by example. Seventh thing, I'm going to land this really quick here, is make time for your marriage. Now, there's nothing more precious than time. I was in a meeting just actually yesterday, and one of the gentlemen was talking about how much he had on his plate. He said, I don't know what else I can do because I can't create more time. Well, the latter part of that was so true, because none of us can create more time. We can go make more money. We can go replace stuff that we've lost. We can bring new relationships into our life, but there's nothing we can do to go replace the time that we've spent. And so that makes it the most priceless thing that we have because it's finite. So making time for your marriage is super important. Everything and everybody's going to be pulling at your time. Don't let the thing that's the most important in your life get the leftovers. Make sure it gets the top, the best of you. And then if something else has to give way, something else needs to give way. Maybe it is a hobby that you can't go to or you can't participate in. Maybe it's a friend that really wanted to spend time with you. Listen, your best friend is at home, and that needs to be the priority. And if you're choosing consistently other people and other things at the expense of not having time with your spouse, that's a problem. And so make time for your marriage. Schedule a regular date night. There is no excuse not to do this. We don't have the money. My wife doesn't like this. She likes to feel special on a regular basis. You figure out what that looks like. I would encourage you, what you did to get her is the same thing you need to be practicing to keep her. She didn't just change. You made the conquest. Now we're married. No, Go back and think, I don't know what to do. Go back and think about what you did when you were dating. You know, maybe you both laid on the hood of a car on a summer night and stared at the stars and talked about them. That didn't cost much, but that was a date, and she looked forward to that. You know, maybe it was just a basketball game that cost a few dollars, or, you know, a Coke from McDonald's, or maybe at a different place in life where it is something a little bit more extravagant. And it can be a mix of all those things, but you need to figure out what they are. They need to make a calendar. She needs to be able to look forward to it, and it needs to be, in my opinion, at least on a weekly basis. There's 7 days a week, people pulling at your time every which direction. You can't carve out one date night for the person that you've dedicated the rest of your life to. If you can't, you need to go back and reevaluate your priorities. Figure out, what do I need to do? I've allowed too much of life to crunch in and push in and crouch on the things that are the most important to me. And I need to take back control of my life, my schedule, my calendar. And you need to make time to communicate. You know, as much maybe as that sounds painful to you as a husband, it is so important to your spouse. And you need to make time that you have those kind of check-ins. And, you know, maybe you're looking out over the course of the year on what you want to do, and you're setting your goals and your visions for all the different facets of your life. You know, here's where I want us to be financially at the end of the year. Here's where we want to go travel to, you know, this year. This is what I want to see grow in the area of our friends, and, you know, all these different things. Have those conversations together. Talk about them, share them, thoughts, feelings. Man, all of this builds such a stronger emotional connection. You'll have a lot less misunderstandings. And don't forget to take time just for fun, to get together and just go laugh. I mean, those things can replenish you, almost kind of restore you, rejuvenate you. So maybe try some hobbies or activities that you guys can do together. Maybe something that neither one of you have ever done. Maybe you need to sacrifice and go try something she loves to do. She loves goofy golf. You hate it, thinks it's stupid. Just go do it, you know, and vice versa. I mean, it becomes a two-way street, but as the man, you need to take the lead on that. You know, give in for some things maybe that you don't enjoy as much. I also encourage you to go out and do something crazy. You know, maybe you want to go skydiving. Maybe you want to do a hot air balloon ride. Maybe you want to go to one of these trampoline places and just jump around late at night when all the kids are gone, or you just want to go to a Dave & Buster's, or whatever the case might be. Just do it together. Have fun. Get outside of the box. Man, enjoy your life and enjoy your wife. It can change your life. You know, you just need to prioritize some of the things that you're doing. I think we'll end it right there. So many other things that we could talk about. I've got this quote, and I'd like you to remember this. A great marriage is not when a perfect couple comes together. It's when an imperfect couple learns to enjoy their differences. I hope this was helpful today. I've got a book. We'll have this in the show notes. If you're watching this via video, you can see it today, but it's by Shante and Jeff Feldman. I think probably one of the most prolific books on marriage. There's two of these. This one happens to be that I'm holding today is for men only. I would encourage you to go get this book. It's a very easy read, but it gives you a look behind the curtain of why and how women process things and why certain things are so important to them. Guys, it was written by the wife. She's a Christian psychologist. It's a cheat code for you to shine in areas maybe that was a struggle in the past. Get the book, read it, wow her. You can take two different approaches. She can see you doing like, what in the world are you reading? You're going to get points. Or put it in your truck, your car, or wherever. Read it when she doesn't know, and just let her watch the transformation that's taking place in front of her eyes and make her wonder, what happened to my husband? Either way, it's a win. I encourage you to go get it. Again, it'll be in the show notes. Once you see the impact of that, I encourage you to get the companion, buy it as a gift, maybe drop it in as a surprise, and it's for women only, and let her learn even a little bit more about you. Guys, we'll see you next time on the Man Up Podcast.
Thank you for watching the Man Up Podcast. Make sure to follow on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube, and give us a review in the comment section on YouTube.
Thank you for listening to the Man Up Podcast. For more resources on your journey to becoming a better man, check out manupadventurecamp.com. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for our daily newsletter for encouragement and tips. If you haven't attended Man Up Adventure Camp yet, it's your time. Sign up now for Man Up 2025. We'll see you around the fire.